Hello, I'm Olga, and today I'm the new host of the new event of DataZen community. People often ask me, what is DataZen? Well, actually, no one ever asked me this question, but for the newcomers, I will try to explain. DataZen community is a place where burnt out but very well paid and highly demanded big data and IT professionals can get together, clap each other on the shoulder, and say, it's okay, dear, it's okay, been there, done that. In short, we are trying to help you to keep calm and reach Zen in the chaos of everyday life, full of exploding data and your responsibility to handle it. And our today's guest, Dmitry, is presenting a life-changing solution for ETL developers. But let him speak for himself. Hi, Dmitry. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
All right. So let me tell a little bit about myself. So my name is Dmitry Pavlov, and I have been a data integration architect at IBA Group for the last 11 years. During that time, I helped build on-premises and cloud data marts and data warehouses. I specialize in data analysis, data modeling, and performance tuning. My role ties together business analysts, database admins, ETL developers, and BI developers. IBA Group's data integration department has substantial experience with traditional ETL tools such as IBM DataStage and Pentaho. And some time ago, we started delving into the big data territory, which led us to the idea of creating a tool that would apply our ETL UI experience to Apache Spark development. So today, I'll be telling you about a product called Visual Flow, powered by Apache Spark. We'll cover multiple questions such as, what's Visual Flow? How did we come up with Visual Flow? How can one use Visual Flow in their project? How quickly can one build a basic ETL job in Visual Flow? How exactly does Visual Flow work? What data sources does it support? What user roles are available in it? User-defined parameter management in Visual Flow. What does a Visual Flow IDE look like? How does one create pipelines in Visual Flow? What's on the development roadmap? And finally, how does one create their first ETL job in Visual Flow? Okay, so what's Visual Flow? Visual Flow is a cloud-native ETL tool with a graphical user interface which combines the best features of Kubernetes, Spark, and Argo workflows, including portability, flexibility, and multi-cloud compatibility, increased developer productivity, high availability, performance and fault tolerance, cost efficiency, and open source code. Now, how did we come up with Visual Flow? The Visual Flow project was started in early 2020 by a group of 6 developers, some of whom had previously worked in a large-scale data engineering product by utilizing the same core tools that ended up constituting Visual Flow. Their goal was to create a solution that could help them do their routine work more easily, quickly, with fewer mistakes and fewer people involved. At that time, other Visual Spark ETL tools had already been emerging on the market for a while, but they seemed to always be either costly or too tightly integrated with their proprietary platforms, thus requiring too much of a paradigm shift for the project. So our developers saw Visual Flow as a lightweight, easy-to-get open source solution that would nicely complement an already existing cloud or on-premises environment with little to no change in the infrastructure. With their ETL background, our developers knew well that switching from traditional ETL tools to Spark ETL could be harsh. While offering great flexibility, scalability, and unlimited parallelism, both Spark and Kubernetes demand significant programming, deployment, and configuration skills. Before one can dive into creating and running their first Spark jobs, they need to know Python, Scala, or Java, a build tool such as SBT or Maven, and a workflow orchestration tool such as Apache Workflow. And those instruments have rather long learning curves. Now, traditional ETL tools, on the other hand, do not require knowledge of a programming language. Most of the designer palette is self-explanatory, and the build and deployment processes are hassle-free. In addition, they come with built-in monitoring, alerting, and error handling tools. Visual Flow was created with that traditional ETL mindset. Now, how can I use Visual Flow in my projects? In the modern data-centered cloud infrastructure, Visual Flow can be used to automate ETL tasks in a variety of scenarios. This include transferring data from transactional data sources and flat files from network file systems to the data lake, transforming and cleansing the data within the data lake, transferring data from the data lake to the data warehouse, transforming the data within the data warehouse to fulfill the needs of data analytics tools. Now, how quickly can I develop a basic ETL job in Visual Flow? To illustrate the benefits of using Visual Flow for accelerated ETL development, we've carried out an experiment during which the same functionality was implemented manually in Scala and using Visual Flow. It was a simple ETL job that extracted data out of one S3 bucket, applied grouping and filtering, and recorded the result to another S3 bucket. It was a basic ETL job, but such basic ETL jobs constitute over 50% of the typical integration project. The manual implementation required a whole bunch of tools like Scala, Scala IDE, Apache Spark, Scala Test, Airflow, Maven, and Jenkins. Visual Flow already included everything that was necessary for the project. It took us only 15 minutes to build our ETL job in Visual Flow and a whopping 2 hours to do the same using manual tools. The difference may add up to a staggering number at the project level. Now, how does Visual Flow work? Visual Flow is based on Argo Workflows, an open source container native workflow engine for orchestrating parallel jobs on Kubernetes. Argo Workflows is implemented as a Kubernetes CRD. Here's how it works. First, users create jobs and pipelines in Visual Flow UI. The jobs and pipelines are stored as config maps and workflow templates in a Kubernetes namespace. Then user triggers pipelines manually or define run schedules. Visual Flow creates an instance of each workflow from a template. Argo launches each workflow in a separate pod. Spark jobs are executed in separate pods as well. If any of the tasks fail, Argo sends a notification to the Slack channel or email. Now, what data sources does Visual Flow support? Since Visual Flow uses Spark to operate in data, it can support any type of data source that is supported by Spark itself. The current UI choices are limited to Amazon S3, IBM Cloud Object Storage, Elasticsearch, DB2, Redis, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Cassandra, MongoDB, Redshift. And the dev team is constantly adding new source types to the product. What user roles are available in Visual Flow? Now, Visual Flow specializes in Spark job creation and management and offers an easy-to-use IDE. One does not need a database to set up Visual Flow. All the configuration is stored in Kubernetes as config maps. All you need is a Kubernetes cluster. Visual Flow has built-in role user management where users can have one of the following roles. Super user can create and manage projects. Admin can manage access within projects. Editor can create, delete, and modify jobs and pipelines. Operator can run and stop jobs and pipelines. Viewer can monitor execution of jobs and pipelines. The user directories supported by Visual Flow are those of GitHub and GitLab. How can I manage user-defined parameters in Visual Flow? The upper-level entity in Visual Flow is a project. All the user roles except for super user apply at the project level. Each project may have a set of user-defined attributes associated with it, so that can be accessed in the project's jobs and pipelines. Examples of such attributes include database connection information and email addresses of recipients. Visual Flow is a multi-tenant system. That means you can create multiple projects in a single cluster. Each of the projects manages the resource allocation and user access in its own namespace. So what does Visual Flow IDE look like? As in most traditional ETL IDEs, in Visual Flow, you create jobs by dragging and dropping boxes, aka stages or processing nodes, from the palette into the canvas, and then connecting them together with arrows. Users can choose from one of the available stages: read, write, join, union, filter, group by, remove duplicates, transformer, data capture, cache. All of these stages but one are configured using a set of property fields. The transformer stage will require the use of SQL and is intended for user-defined transformation logic, which is anything that is not covered by the other stages. How do I create pipelines in Visual Flow? Visual Flow supports job chaining. A group of chained jobs is called a pipeline. Designing the pipelines is straightforward using drag-and-drop operations in Pipeline Designer, where you can also set up alerts. The alerts use Slack, a popular corporate communication platform, and email. The job and pipeline statuses can be monitored in the corresponding screens in the UI alongside the CPU and memory utilization. The jobs and pipelines can be exported for code backups, migrations, and promotions. What does the Visual Flow development roadmap look like? While we have made Visual Flow available to the public, we acknowledge its shortcomings, and we want to make it more versatile and user-friendly. Already, the following changes are included in our backlog: to enable cron scheduling in the GUI, to include custom Spark parameters in all stages, not just at the job level, to add support for truncate and truncate cascade in the write stage, to add support for SSO authentication, and to enable variables at the job level. And the list grows almost every day. So, to summarize, now Visual Flow helps you kickstart your Cloud ETL journey using an intuitive and concise UI. It runs on any Kubernetes cluster, on-premise or cloud. It can be set up and ready to go in less than 30 minutes. It does not require knowledge of any programming, build, deployment, or orchestration instruments. It helps to quickly design applications to move and transform large-scale, semi-structured data sets and load them into data lakes and data warehouses to combine the ease of use of traditional ETL tools and the power and flexibility of the Spark processing engine. If you have any further questions or want to try Visual Flow in your own environment, please visit Visual Flow product page. Visual Flow is also available on GitHub, AWS, and Docker Hub. Now, to conclude this presentation, we're gonna look at how do I create my first ETL job in Visual Designer, in Visual Flow. So for that purpose, I guess I have to stop the presentation here. So this is the front page of Visual Flow. In here, you select from one of the projects or create a new one with the plus button. So we select an existing project. On the left-hand side, there is the main menu from which you can choose from one of the several available items. The first item is Overview. It shows you all your jobs and pipelines and their current statuses, and also the current system resource utilization. Next up is Jobs. So here you can see all of your jobs in the project, their current status, which is basically from the previous run. If the job is running, it will show its current CPU and memory utilization. Also, from here, you can run or stop a job, you can delete a job, and you can check the logs or go straight to the designer to change the job design. Okay, next up is Pipelines. Very similar to Jobs, almost identical menu. You can run pipelines from here or go to Designer. Then import, export. This is what we use for code promotions. So basically from here, so the way it works, when you create new jobs in development, you go to Jobs or Pipelines, then you select those jobs. Okay, okay, like this one. And then you press Export, right? And you save the job on your laptop. And then you go log into your UAT environment, then you do import. And then settings, let's check what's in here. So main thing in here is user roles. So I don't see any because I am not an admin. But if you are an admin, you'll see all the project roles in here. So when you create a new project, you have to specify all the roles because otherwise nobody will be able to access the project to start creating jobs. Okay, and project parameters. So the project parameters are usually source system connection information, as well as some contact information for notifications to be shared by multiple jobs in your project. So you don't have to specify all those parameters at the job level. Okay, so now let's review the job that we have, the demo job. So I go straight to Designer. On the left-hand side, you see the Designer palette. It includes all the transformations that we are offering, and you build your job by dragging and dropping those transformations to the job canvas, then connecting those transformations with arrows, and then individually configuring each stage with the connection information in whatever configuration they require. So let's review some of those stages. So in this one, read event, we have a Microsoft SQL Server connection. We specify the parameters, connection information, which is picked up from the project level. If you press this button here, you can see all the project params, and you can change that connection information, or you can manually specify it if it's not available at the project level. Okay. So you can either create an object such as table name or view name, or you can specify custom SQL query, which means what exactly you want. It may be a join or whatever. Okay. So now the next stage is the join stage. It combines, so we read from two different MS SQL databases, then we combine the data, which is what we use that join stage for, and then we cache the output of the join stage, and that cache information is further flowing to Elasticsearch and IBM Cloud Object Storage, and then it goes to the group stage, group by venue city, and then to the custom transformation stage, where you specify your custom Spark SQL. This is where you basically need SQL within Visual Stage. If you want to do something which is not covered by those filter, group by, join stage, CDC stage, remove duplicates, then you use the custom transformer stage, and here you need SQL, the Spark version. And then finally, after this transformation, we write the output to DB2. Again, this connection information and the overwrite mode. Okay, so back from here, we navigate to pipelines. And let's take a look at our pipeline. I hope it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. So it's very similar to the job designer interface, except here on the designer palette, you don't have the transformations. Instead, you have those three blocks here. One is job, which means regular job. Then another one is notification, which is telling you about your sequence completion or pipeline completion. It can email you or it can ping you on Slack. And a very important stage or block is called container. This is your last resort solution for when some kind of data source or a transformation is not currently supported by Visual Flow, and you are stuck with your project because you need that source type or that transformation. So this enables you basically during the execution of your sequence to spin up any custom container with your own source code. It may be shell script, Java, C++, anything, and do whatever it is you need to do. Okay, but ideally you shouldn't have to do it, and we'll be keeping adding more and more transformations to the job palette, so you wouldn't ever have to use it. But this is, like I said, this is a last resort solution. And basically that's it with the UI review. And now let me just, before we start with the Q&A session, let me open the presentation slide with our contact information. So in case I'm not able to answer any questions in the UI section, please contact us using this URL here. There's a form at the bottom of the page. Use this form to reach out to the development team with your questions. You can do as much as schedule a call with them in case you have multiple questions or an offering. And that's it. So I think now it's time for questions. Do we have any?
Yeah, sure, Dmitry. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting and, sounds really appealing to me. And I would like to ask, are you really saying, let's imagine I'm a stay-at-home mom, bored to death, and but deep in my heart, I love statistics. Can I use your Visual Flow product for my database of extracurricular activities of my kids? What skills do I need to have?
Well, as with any ETL tool, you need to what a basic ETL job involves. It involves reading from a source, then applying some transformations, even the very minimal ones, and then writing to the target. So you need, at the very minimum, you need to understand the source you're dealing with. You need to have access there, an account possibly, and you need to understand how the source works, how to, is it using SQL queries? Is it file storage? Whatever. You need to understand the source. You need to understand the transformations you want to apply. And you need to understand equally the target. So if you have enough knowledge to understand all that, chances are you will be able to successfully use Visual Flow.
So you probably need to know SQL, right?
Yeah, ideally, yes, because I can't imagine if you don't know SQL, then at least a lot of sources, they require the knowledge of SQL to operate.
And what about real projects? I mean, what role of who is in the project is using your product, since you don't have to be a developer to use it? What do you think?
Well, typically ETL solutions are built using a team of data engineers, because they have the discipline, the processes to manage such projects. Because the projects I've been in, we had thousands of ETL jobs. It's not like building 1 or 2 or 3 jobs for your daily routines. It's a serious thing, and it needs discipline. It needs order. That is why you need an organized, centrally managed team of specialists. The goal of Visual Flow is to unburden you from the need to be a programmer in a specific programming language. You don't. Let's say, for example, you have Java background, or you have whatever C++ background. You don't necessarily match the Python developer profile. So you need to learn Python first. But what if you don't have the time for that, and you have a project on hand and you need to work on that project? In that case, you can start with Visual Flow, because you don't have to learn anything unless, well, maybe you have to learn SQL if you don't know it.
Okay, I see. Thank you. And during your presentation, you mentioned that there are already some products on the market. And how is your product conceptually differs from the competitors?
Well, the key points are it's free of charge, it's open
Yeah.
source, and it's based on industry standard software solutions such as Kubernetes and Spark. The competitors, many of them, such as Microsoft Azure Data Factory, they use some proprietary engines to operate on data, and we don't know exactly how they compare to Spark. But the thing is, many of them are tightly integrated with their platforms. So it kind of makes no sense if you think in terms of, for example, Amazon Web Services. If you don't use anything Amazon Web Services, and then you just want to start using their ETL service, which is Glue, it kind of makes no sense to buy just AWS Glue alone and not buy anything else AWS. So it's a strategic architecture choice, whether you are buying the entire thing, like the entire set of services, only from Amazon, or you want to keep your freedom and have custom open source solutions on premises or on your private cloud. The choice is yours.
And you were saying that you have this multi-cloud compatibility, right? Did I understand you right?
Yeah, well, what we meant under that is not that we're compatible with multiple cloud services. What it meant was that Visual Flow can be installed anywhere where Kubernetes can be installed, which is pretty much everywhere. It does not mean we have integration with any typical services of the multitude of cloud platforms that exist on the market. So that was what we meant under multi-cloud compatibility. You just need to be able to install Kubernetes, and that's pretty much everywhere today. If you can install Kubernetes, you can install Visual Flow.
So talking about like security, secrets, keeping of secrets, it's also how it is realized in Visual Flow.
Okay, so the passwords and other sensitive information
Hmm.
is stored in Kubernetes secrets in an encrypted form.
So it's actually functionality of Kubernetes. And
Yes.
okay, and you mentioned that you use Spark. And what about, let's imagine I have a current solution, and it is in a Spark. How about the migration from current solution?
Yeah, so currently, unfortunately, no automation exists to help you with the migration. So you'll have to literally start manually creating every single ETL job by hand.
Mhm. And talking about manually, and while there is already a project, yes, and I want to apply some changes in the pipelines and deploy to all environments. How is the development process built with this tool?
So you're talking about code promotions, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so there is export and import functionality within Visual Flow. So basically, you build your jobs in development, and then you export those jobs and pipelines to your laptop. Then you navigate to your Visual Flow UAT or test instance, and you import those jobs and pipelines. As simple as that.
And you mentioned tests, and are there any metrics already implemented for like data quality or for the quality of the transferred data?
Okay, so we are not currently collecting any metrics. As far as logs, those are stored in Kubernetes pods, and once the pods are dead, the logs are no longer available. Which in practice means once your job has finished in an hour or two or 5 or 10 hours, the logs won't be available. So this is something we're working on. We want to persist uh, the logs somewhere that they're available for a long time.
So for now, there is no tracing of logs and metrics, right? But it's
Well, I mean, you have logs, but temporarily.
mhm. I see. And let me ask you another example. Let's say I have database with 10 tables, and
Mhm.
they have been changing, and I want to replicate this database to other database.
Mhm.
Can I do it with Visual Flow?
Well, as far as I understand, the question lies in the area of automatic data agnostic replication tools, which are not content aware. They basically don't care. They just replicate any changes. In which case, it's usually implemented using a log scraper at the database or the data source side, which is then communicating to the ETL tool the changes, or the data source has that capability of reporting the changes to the ETL tool. So no, currently we do not support any of this.
Okay, thank you, Dmitry, for your very interesting presentation and for your answers. And I think our listeners, you can write your questions and they will be answered on this page that you see. And I encourage everyone to subscribe to our social media, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and don't miss our next events. Thank you, Dmitry. Thank you,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. And just one concluding word is because we are a young and growing product, we are looking for new features to add. And your feedback is important in helping us understand which features are need to be added first, you know. So if we don't have something, do let us know that you need it. And it will help you and it will help us as well. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, and talking about feedback, thank you guys. We will appreciate if you leave feedback on this event and see and tell us what you like, what you don't like, and what you want to see more. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
See you. Bye.